Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome. Looks like we still got a couple more people coming in. Welcome to our tips and tricks for January. Today it's going to be on the form builder, which I know that we're all excited to learn more about. So we're going to just wait a couple more minutes and see who else decides to join us today. We had probably the most turnout we've ever had on a tips and tricks webinar as far as registrants. So that's really exciting. So we'll give them a couple more minutes to join us here for anybody who would like to. And then I also just wanted to mention that Miranda here is going to be on the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat there. We will be doing kind of a Q&A at the end. So it'll be like an open discussion where anybody can ask questions. I do ask that everybody stays muted during the actual webinar itself while we're going through everything. So if you'll just save all of your questions to the end, or if it's a burning question, you can certainly put it in the chat there, and Miranda will be happy to assist you there as well. So we'll just wait another couple minutes here and see who joins us today. I hope everyone is off to a really great start. We have been very, very busy over here at Details. We've got some wonderful things that we are working on. And I know that Valentine's Day is going to be coming up for any of you that participate in Valentine's Day. So make sure that you're utilizing Details there to save your recipes so you can use them again next year and just make some updates. You can also make some templates there on your worksheet if you'd like. So all great things. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and kind of get ready to start today. We are going to be going over, like I said, the form builder. We're going to be going over basically how to create one from start to finish, and then also all of the different options that you have within the form builder itself as far as your mapping options so that you can automatically map that information from your form responses into an event in Details. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I have open right now is going to be our form list. Once you have decided that you want to connect with the forms, you are going to be going to the main menu here, and then you're going to see an option for form list. It'll be located right underneath that normal event list that you would see there. So talking about getting started with the forms, we will be sharing that form here at the end, and then we'll also be including the form to get started on the form builder after we are done. And then it's also going to be that follow-up email that you guys receive about the tips and tricks webinar. So if after this, anybody is ready to get started with their form builder subscription, that's going to be included in the follow-up email there as well. All right, so to get started here on the forms, we are going to be going to our form list page, and then we're going to see this create new form button. When we click on the create new form button, it's going to pop up with a box for us to fill out all of the information about our form itself. So the very first thing that you're going to want to fill out is going to be that form name. So I would recommend keeping it something very simple like intake form, wedding intake form, if it's something specific to do with like corporate clients, or maybe it's a follow-up survey to get people's opinions on the event after the fact. Just name that accordingly. So in our case, I'm going to go ahead and name it intake form. Excuse me. There we go. And then once I've done that, I've got two different options here. So one is to make this form active. So I'm going to go ahead and make my form active. And then I also have the option to create an event automatically when a form is submitted. So you don't necessarily need to create an event in details from your form submissions, but if your main purpose is to use this for the intake form, then I highly recommend that you do so. This is going to automatically create an event in details, and this will also allow you to map their responses to your different custom questions directly into the fields within the event. And we'll go over that a little bit more once we get to the form itself. Next, up at the top, we have this advanced tab. The first option that we see here is going to be multiple submissions. So if you do not have this multiple submissions toggled to on, you are not going to be able to have somebody submit the same form more than once. So in the case of, let's say I have just a general intake form. It's not specific to a wedding or a corporate event or anything specific. It's just my general intake. If somebody comes in here to fill it out for their wedding, and then a year later, they want to come back and fill out this same form for their anniversary party, if you do not have multiple submissions turned on, they will not be able to unless they fill it out from a different computer. So it's basically recognizing what computer they're on at the time that they fill that out. So if you want people to be able to submit this form more than once, you will want to check that multiple submissions checkbox there. And then next we have our opening and close date. So again, since we're working with an intake form, I'm going to want an open date for this form, but I probably don't want a close date because it doesn't really have a start and finish. It's just going to live on my website for people to fill out whenever they come there and are ready to fill out that form for their events. If you're doing this in the case of maybe you're doing like a follow-up form or something to that effect, maybe you want to say, fill this form out within the next week, maybe even have some kind of incentive there. You can go ahead and add a close date if you would like. For me, I'm going to go ahead and leave that close date open for now. Next, they have this created event name field. So as we know, with every event in details, you have the option to name your events. I would say that the majority of details users have a standard practice for what they name their event names. Maybe it's the location, maybe it's the client's name, something to that effect. So in this case, we're actually going to be utilizing tokens. So anybody who is familiar with our contract tokens or also our proposal tokens that we just implemented recently, you're going to be using that same idea here. So for example, maybe I want this to be my client's name. So that way, anytime that somebody fills this out, it's going to automatically take their name and make it into the event name. There are a variety of different options here as far as tokens go. We do have a multitude of different support center articles that pertain to tokens that will outline all of the available options for you. Miranda, if you can locate the one that specifically pertains to form tokens, that would be wonderful. And then there's a whole list there. You can just kind of copy and paste right into there. All right, so then the next thing that we're going to look at here, and the final thing on this particular modal, is going to be a form URL slug. Anybody who is unfamiliar with form URL slugs, it's basically just the continuation of your URL. For example, if we look up here at the top where it says preview.details.flower/forms, that forms here, the word forms is going to be the slug. So it's just going to be a continuation of that. Goodness gracious, sorry. Okay, so you can put pretty much anything you want in there. Maybe it would be wedding intake, maybe it's just some additional verbiage about your company, whatever you want that to be. It's just going to be basically a series of words that you would put onto the end of your URL. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and click save there. And then when I click save, it's going to take me over to the area where I'm going to start building out my form. When it first comes to this page, I'm going to have two different options. So the first option that I'm going to have is to basically start off completely blank, no information already filled in to the form, and I just want to completely customize my form from scratch. The other option is that you can start from a template. When you guys start off with the Form Builder subscription, you are going to automatically get the wedding intake form that we've created, and then there's also going to be a general intake form. So those two templates are going to be in there for you to utilize. But of course, as you start building out forms, if you wanted to create templates of your own, very much so like the worksheet, you'll be able to do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start from a template here. And I'm going to click on the start button, and that's going to bring up any templates that either already come with the software or that you may have created yourself. So I'm going to select the wedding intake form here, and I'm going to load in that template. So this template is going to automatically start off with a series of different questions that would pertain to someone who is planning their wedding. If I go back up to the top, it's going to initially start off with your company logo. That's going to be the first thing you see. If you have a larger logo, kind of like what you see here, I can click on this edit button, and I can change that maximum height. Same thing if you have a smaller logo and you wanted to make it bigger, you could do that here as well. You can also change the alignment here, and then if you wanted to add any alt text, you could, but again, not required. So that's going to just change my logo size there. The next thing that we come to is going to be the heading. So it starts off with wedding intake form. Of course, you can customize it however you'd like to fit with your branding and your business. Again, the way that you're going to do that, there's going to be the second icon here is going to be your edit button, and you'll be able to change out that information here. You can also change out the different type of heading. So if you wanted that to be smaller or bigger, you can change the alignment, and then also, of course, that title case option as well. If you wanted to do a background image, so you could do that for pretty much any one of the different components that you have here on the form. If you wanted to do a photo per component, or you can definitely leave it as is. And then as you can see here, we have what's called a background image. So we decided not to do per component images. Next, we're going to have, it's just a series of text here. So you can customize this to be whatever you'd like for you and your company, whatever you want your clients to see when they come to fill out this form. It does start off with this verbiage here, and then anything that's uppercase, you'll want to go in and just change that. So instead of your company here, you'll put in your actual company name. Similar to how the contract terms were when we first started before we got tokens. So you'll be able to go in there and edit that. Moving down, the different options that we have here, we have your name, so whoever's filling it out, and then your partner's name, phone number, email address, mailing, wedding date, and then the 3 different times and location areas that were on the details page. So ceremony start time and location, cocktail start time and location, reception start time and location. We also have our approximate guest count and then what their floral budget is. There's a couple of different gauging questions here, like if they want any focal structures to be in their event, and then what their overall vision for their wedding is. If your events will include any personal items, and then if they will, can they describe? I did have a couple different people that asked me specifically about them sharing their Pinterest links. And then we also thought, well, they may also have a wedding page. So you can add those in here as options, and they do come standard with this particular template. These will show up as custom properties on the details page. If you are unfamiliar with custom properties, I highly recommend checking out that support center article. And Miranda, if you will throw up that that support center article there about custom tokens. And thank you so much for everybody for all your questions there in the chat. Okay, so Susan here, so can some of these be drop downs, i.e. budget ranges? Yes, so there is there's a couple of different component options here if you wanted to do like a multiple select option or a choose one. So you have this select multiple option here, and that's going to allow you to add in different options. So I can put in my different ranges. So maybe my ranges are going to be like 1 to 5,000, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. And my client will be able to select her different option from there. So I would highly recommend utilizing a select multiple option for that. Erica, no, at this time, we're not allowing them to upload photos directly from this form. They can certainly, if you wanted to utilize something similar to like the Pinterest link here, you could have them basically upload like a Google Drive link if you wanted to do it that way, and that way they can send all of their photos over to you, or basically just any kind of internet-based photo platform. So if they wanted to link that there, they could. But as far as directly uploading photos, no. When the bride completes the form, these answers automatically populate into the proposal that is created in the inquiry stage. Yes, it does. And I will get to that in just a moment. All right, so basically it does come with a lot of these just general generic questions. They're going to be able to select their color palette, how many bridesmaids and groomsmen, ring bearers, things like that, the types of arrangements that they're looking to have in their events. And then also that day of contact information, just in case. As I stated, you can certainly add to this. You can change what's already on here, really customize it. It does come with this marble background, but of course, we want this to be something that's completely branded to you and your company. So you'll be able to go in there and change out the backgrounds. You can change the fonts on the different field types. Can change all the colors, so that's going to be color font, etc. So all of these different options here, just so you can make it completely customizable. But let's dive into some of the specific options as far as mapping that we can get to. So Elizabeth there mentioned having this auto populate into an event. Elizabeth, I think that you joined us a little bit later, but when we initially created this form, we set it to automatically create an event from any of the submissions that we received. But once we get to our form, we also need to tell the form where we want these answers to go. So in a case of, let's say, our first and last name here, if I go into my edit panel, I can go into the set value as and choose where I want that to map. So because it's their first and last name, it's automatically going to map into that contact name first last. But if I look at this drop-down menu, for any one of the different fields that I have using this component type, which in this case is an input box, I would say the majority of the fields that you have here on the form are going to be input boxes. These are all of the different areas in which you can map information using this component type. So all of your ceremony locations and times, all of the information about the contact themselves, so phone number, what their role is, their name, city, state, zip, etc. You can also have who were they referred by. You can map that information in there. The event type. So all of these different options as far as mapping ability. But with that being said, every different component type has a different set of mapping options. So the input box has the most mapping options out of anything. But in the case of, let's say, the date picker here, if I went to go and edit this, I have very limited options. So it's going to either be the event date. I can certainly add that in as a custom property, or I can choose to have it as a form response only, which means that it won't map into anything. All right, let me just go through some of these questions here. All right, so Amanda said, when a new client fills out a form, do we get some sort of notification about that form submission? I'm really glad that you asked that. So right now we are in the quote unquote beta stage of the form builder. So we are adding things as we go along. One of those things is going to be a form submission alert. We already have this almost completely finished. I'm hoping to have that out by, let's say, next week or so. But it's going to be almost exactly like your proposal signed notifications, how you get those emails notifying you that a client has signed a particular proposal. Only it's going to say that they have submitted your form, and then it's also going to have a link to go directly to their response page. We'll see the response page here in just a little bit. Merlin, input boxes, how does details register that info into the form? I guess I'm not understanding the question, Merlin, I'm sorry. If you can just reword that a little bit with more information, that would be wonderful. So right now though, let's go ahead and go back down to the very bottom here, and we're going to go over the different types of element types that you have. So if I click add new element, the first option I see is going to be a checkbox. So you can use this checkbox specifically for things like on the details page where you have an option, is the reception going to be plated or buffet? So you can have a checkbox for that. You can also have a checkbox for things like, if we go up here a little bit, you can have it to be a toggle instead of a checkbox. And it can be things like, do you want to have something included in your event? Something to that effect. The next option is going to be columns. So this is just going to put your information into different columns there on the form, very similar to how this one is laid out. The columns are going to help you a lot because you will need to have basically 2 questions in one column, and then another column with 2 questions, and then another column with 2 questions. The point of that is so that when people are viewing it on mobile, it's going to properly outlay all of your questions. So it will be your name, your partner's name, your email, your phone number. Otherwise it's going to be the left side of the form, and then the right side of the form is going to follow right under that. So I would highly recommend utilizing columns there. That's going to really help you a lot. The date picker, like I said, is going to be used for things like the event date. So you'll be able to utilize that in that way. And then on the image, so this is just going to be a standalone image. So if you wanted to show a couple examples of maybe some work that you've done in the past, or in the case of, let's say you wanted to use an image as your header. So maybe you go into Canva, you create a nice, beautiful header that has your logo, maybe some flowers, something that really fits your brand, and it's an image rather than, standalone words or something. You can definitely put that in here using the image field. The select multiple we did just talk about, so that's where you can add in multiple different options for your clients to pick. And this is pretty much what it's going to look like right here. So it'll have these different options. You can change, of course, like the colors on each one of these. So if you wanted to have, I don't know, blue backgrounds with white lettering, you could do that. And then the text field, so that's going to be similar to what we saw at the very top, where it just says, thanks for choosing Details Flower software for your event. We look forward to assisting you further. The time input is going to be anything that requires a specific time. So that's going to be like your ceremony time, your reception time, things like that. And the color selector, pretty self-explanatory. That's going to be the color selector where your clients would be able to select the different colors for their events. When they look at it, it's going to look very similar to the color palette that we see in Details when we're creating our events on the worksheet. They will have limited options there, like they won't have favorites options and things like that they probably won't need. But they'll be able to select all of their different colors straight from that screen. The company logo, so that's going to be just what we saw at the top of this form, where it will automatically filter in your company logo there. The heading is going to be that text heading that we saw there, kind of that says wedding intake form. Of course, you can change that to say anything that you'd like. Or if you wanted to make your form out into sections and maybe you want to have a heading for each section, you can do that as well. The input box was what we looked at there for the first and last name. Tons of different options that you can do there for that input box. So I highly recommend that you check that out, as that's probably going to be what the majority of your questions are going to be used in. The select one is going to be very similar to what we see here, but they'll only be able to select one option as opposed to selecting, you know, bridal, bouquet, bridesmaids, boutonnieres, etc. They would only be able to select one. And then the text area is going to actually be these ones right here. So this is where your client's going to be able to fill out, you know, a paragraph of information, maybe about themselves or how they met, what they would like to see in their event, things like that. For each one of these different fields, though, if I click in, and Merlin, I will get you to your question in just a second. If I click into any one of these, they're all pretty much laid out the exact same way. So you would have your field name. So that's going to be kind of like your internal name, if you will. If anybody who is familiar with like CRM platforms and things that have different properties that might have a different interior name versus what you see externally, this is kind of the same premise. The field name is going to be what you see internally on the response page. The label is what your client is going to be seeing. And then obviously the set value as, so that was where you're going to be mapping those things in. On the layout, you have two different options. So one can be a side-by-side, which is what we have everything laid out here. So it's going to be the label and then the field will be right next to it. If you wanted to do the other option, which is going to be a stacked option, it would have the label and then the field would be right underneath it. You can also select your different colors and backgrounds here for things like this is a time input. You're going to be able to select the color on the date picker or the time picker that they are using. And then again, all kinds of different background and text options. Also, for every field, you're going to have this general tab where you can select different border styles. You can also adjust your paddings and margins, how high you want that minimum height of the specific component to be. And then also this is where you're going to change out the font for that specific field. Let me just take a pause here and go back to these questions. Merlin said the information that clients insert into the input boxes, such as discussing the theme or color or style, where would the info go? Okay, into the details boxes in the specific section, example, brides, okay. So anything that's on this form will have a mapping option. When I say that though, things like how many bridesmaids and the number of groomsmen, those can be mapped into a custom property, but they're not going to filter automatically onto the worksheet. The reason behind that is because no two worksheets are the same, no two worksheet templates are the same. But most of the options that you have here on the form are mappable options. So for example, this your name here, if I go in here to edit, this set value as is what's going to determine where it goes in the event. So Merlin, where it will go is all up to you. You will go in here for each one of these components and select where you want that to go. So the set value as, these are going to be your fields in the event and details. So the contact city, the contact state, those are going to be things that you would put in your contact info section there. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Yeah, of course, my pleasure. All right, and then Katie here, she said our intake forms included in the professional yearly membership. At this time, the forms are not included in any one of our plans. The forms do come with a 1-month free trial. After that 1 month, it will be $25 per month. During our research of basically forum platforms, we found that a lot of people stayed within a $50 to $99 range per month. So given that ours is integrated with details, it's going to automatically map those fields into your event. You know, it's a really great deal at $25 a month. So anybody who wants to sign up, we will be sending that link, like I said, and then you will get that 1 month free trial to check it out, see if it's something that you wanted to continue with. And then, of course, you know, if there's anything that you would like to see in the form, you're welcome to let us know that as well. All right. So the last thing that I wanted to chat about before we leave off of this page is going to be the menu option in the upper right-hand corner. So if I go into this menu option, I've got a couple of different things. So the first two are going to be your load version and load template. These are going to be very similar to what you see on the worksheet when you go to the options menu in the upper right-hand corner, where every time you save a version of the form, it's going to be in that load version area. So you can go back and forth between your different versions. And then same thing with the template there. When you save a template, you'll be able to load in the template from here as well. So if you initially thought, oh, well, I'll start from scratch, and then you got in here and said, you know, I just really want to use a template, you can come back in there and load in that template at any time as well. You'll also be able to start over from a blank form, so kind of vice versa there. If you go in here and you decide that you like what you have, but you just really want to start over from scratch, you can go into a blank form. And then we're also going to see our form defaults. So these are going to be all of the different options here for the form itself. So prior to this, we looked at individual component options, where for that specific component, you can change the background and the different colors and the font styles and things. But if you wanted to change something for every component on your worksheet, you want every field that you have on here to be a specific font type or a specific color, you would come right in here to the component defaults, or excuse me, the form defaults, and adjust this information here. So you'll have pretty much the same options. You do have a couple additional here, such as that navigation bar down at the bottom. The navigation bar is going to be where your clients are going to click, you know, save or submit, or to go back and forth between multiple pages if you had added additional pages there. So you can change the whole style of that particular area. Same thing on the component defaults here. You can change out your border styles, padding margins, etc., for all of your components that are on this form. When you go close this modal, it's going to ask you if you wanted to apply these settings to all of your existing pages. In this case, I don't, I'm going to say no. And then if you wanted to apply all the settings to the existing components. So components are the individual questions, and then of course pages are on the left-hand side here. So you can also add as many pages as you would like just by clicking on the Add Page button here. Something to notice about adding pages, though, is that this welcome page and the thank you page will always be the first and last pages. So anything that you add are just going to be right in the middle of those and just go right on down the list. All right, so then once I have everything set up exactly like I like it, I can click the Save button down at the bottom. And again, I keep going back and forth between the correlations of the worksheet process and the form process, but this is another instance where that will come into play. This is going to be the same, save as a version, or you can save it as a template. When you're saving versions, and I want to stress this a lot, whether it be on the worksheet or here on the form, I always recommend putting in a description of what you did since the last time that you saved. In this case, it's just going to be my first draft because it's the only version that I have. But next time when I come in, I might say that I added a specific question or I changed the font styles. And then I'm just going to go ahead and save. All right. Next, before I go into all of responses and things like that, I'm going to want to go to this preview page. So on the preview page, once this loads, we're going to have a series of different options as far as viewing points. So as we know, some of our clients are on tablets, some of them are on computers, some of them are on mobile devices. So we want to make sure that our form is going to look the way that we want it on all of those different platforms. So this is what it will look like on a computer. And then the upper left-hand corner, I can switch to make it a tablet. So this is what it will look like on a tablet. And then this is what it will look like on a mobile device. So you'll just want to make sure that all of those viewpoints are going to be covered, that it looks great no matter what you're viewing it from. And then once you're satisfied with what you have here, you can go back over to your form list. And then once you're on your form list here, you're going to be able to go ahead and go right into your form. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to see this little eyeball. If you don't see the eyeball, it means that either your form doesn't have an opening date, your opening date is in the future and hasn't happened yet, or you didn't mark it as active. If any of those things are happening, you can fix that by going into your edit form details, which is going to be that little pencil and paper here. But for now, I'm going to click on this eyeball, and that's going to take me directly over to my form itself. So up at the top here, I'm going to see my URL, and this is going to be the URL that I would choose to send off to my client. So that's going to be, maybe you wanted to send it off in an email, or maybe you are hosting it on your website or something to that effect. This is the wrong one. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so you can host it on your website. You can definitely put it into an email, make it a hyperlink, things of that nature. And then this is exactly what your client is going to see when they view it. You'll also notice here at the top that I have, it looks like details.flower/events. And then of course, all of the identifying information for my form. Any of you who have already selected your subdomain, which is going to be this initial first part basically of my URL. It's going to be a custom URL that you can have branded to your business. So it can say anything that you want it to say. We do have a series of domains that you can choose from, but as far as like the subdomain, where I put details here, maybe you wanted to put, posies or whatever it is for your company, you can do that as well. So in order to do that, you're going to actually go onto the forms list if you're already on it, and there's a menu button here, and you can select your custom domain. So you'll fill out that form. Subdomains are going to be $60 annually. They are included with the enterprise account. So for anybody who is interested in that, we will also send off that link to get their subdomain if you'd like to as well. In addition to hosting your forms the way that we see it, it's also going to take place of your current proposal links. So your proposal links will say posies.floral.events or whatever you've chosen. Okay, Susan, I'm in my form builder and can't figure out how to change a fill-in box to a drop-down menu. I'm in the wedding template. So Susan, it's not a drop-down, it's a multiple selection. That was the one that we looked at. But if you have additional questions pertaining to your specific form, if you'll just email me at support@detailsflowers.com and we can set up like some one-on-one time. Also, anybody else who wants to set up one-on-one time, feel free to email me as well. Lynn Darby, so we can add this form to our website. Yes, so basically you're going to take this link and then you will add it on your website. I would say traditionally the best way that you can add it to your website is going to be inside of like a button, or maybe you want to have a photo on there and you can have them click on the photo. So all of those things work to add that onto your website. If you're not familiar with what options you have on your website, I would highly recommend checking that out. But I would say every website has the option to add in like a button or a photo or something that you can then attach a link to. All right. Yeah, of course. My pleasure. All right. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to fill out a couple of the things here on my intake form. One of the things to note is that I have made the email address and then the first two options here at the top required. So anybody who does not fill out those things, they're going to get an error message at the top. In those edit modals that we looked at for each one of your components, you can choose if you want that to be a required field that they have to fill out or they can't submit it or not. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out my information here. All right, and then I'm probably just going to leave the majority of the rest of the stuff blank just for time's sake. And but I can fill out any of the information here that I'd like. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the submit button. Once it's done, they're going to get a page that looks very similar to this. You can also customize this page. So over on the left-hand side where we looked at the different pages that you can add onto your event, you can also edit any of them there as well. All right, so then if I go back over here, I'm going to refresh my page and we can look at the responses and then how those are going to lay out for you. At this time, Elisa, embedding is not an option. The link does not take it to your account on details. It will take it to your specific domain. Merlin, no, there is not a way to block off dates at this time, but it is something that we have discussed, and hopefully we can do that in the future. All right, so anytime that you get a response for any one of your forms, so underneath this responses column here, it's going to change the numbers. So right now I have one submission on my form that I just created. If I go into my responses here, of course, thank you, Merlin. So it's going to be the details hosted domain, Elisa. So that was what we were talking about just a moment ago, where it said details.floral.events. That was the subdomain specifically that I picked. If you don't pick that, it's going to be portal.details.flowers. So it's not going to be specifically linking to your account. It's going to be linking to the details platform through a domain or a subdomain that you've selected. Okay, so when you get to this form responses page, it's going to show who it was that filled it out. It's also going to say how complete how much they completed on the form, and then what form version. So this is a version January 12th, 2022, because it's the one that I made today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And then once I get onto my page here, we're going to see all of the responses here. So first it's going to show me the field name. That's going to be my internal name here. Then it's going to show me the label. That's what my client saw when they saw the question. It's going to outline what my response was, if that was required or not, where this information is supposed to be mapping to, and then also the field type that was used. If we're ready to view the event, up at the top, we've got a couple of different things. We can either go directly into the event, which I didn't fill out any of the information that would map to the event, so we're going to skip over that one for the moment. And then my client here, so I can click directly into my client's info as well. So when I do so, it's going to go right into this page. The couple things that I did fill out here, which was my first and last name, my phone number, the email address. So all those things have mapped automatically into that particular client's information. Same thing with the information that's going to be going into the event itself. It's going to map into whatever fields you selected. If you're unsure as to where you mapped them to, there is, like I said, this column here to show you where those would be mapping to. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go over Miranda's question here, and then we can open the floor for anybody else who wants to ask questions. So Miranda's question, is there a way we can link our Google Calendar to a question option so they can choose a meeting date? I would assume that that's probably going to be kind of the same question as Merlin there, just like they'll want to block off certain dates or things like that. At this time, there is not an option to directly link your Google Calendar into the date picker, though I think that's a great idea. I'll definitely put in the request for it, and then we can look into it a little further and see how involved it would be. All right, so anybody have any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Do I see the answers to my intake form on my details account? So this is in your account. This right here is your forms list. So the forms list is located, once you've connected with the form, it's going to be there on the main menu. It's going to say forms list. It's going to take you to this page right here, and you'll click on the number 1 or whatever number it is to view your responses, and you can review the responses there from within your account. Yes. Erica, we would love to add the option to upload photos. At this time, we are looking for a better solution as far as data management, because housing photos cost a lot of data. So if we were to do that outright as we are now, we would basically need to up our prices on it for uploading photos, because it does cost a lot to house those images. And there's also no way of knowing how many photos each one of your clients would upload into the form submission. So if you're doing, let's say, 20 to 30 photos per submission, it could really add up after a while. But we are looking into a better solution on that. So it is something that we are looking to add into in the future. And I'll definitely add your name onto that request there, Erica.
If I understood you correctly, you could do a link and allow them to add a link to like their Google Images, like if they wanted to share an album with you of their inspiration pictures.
Yes, that is correct. So they could do that. They could do like a Google Drive, something of that effect if they wanted to add in the link there. And then, of course, before they sent it, they would need to make sure that it's just shared with anybody that has access to the link. And they could definitely share it that way. But as far as directly uploading photos, that's currently not an option. Okay, let's see who's next. Okay, will we get an email link to the recording once this is over? Yes, Colleen, you definitely will. It's probably going to go out either Friday or Monday, so it won't be like today or anything, but we'll have that follow-up email going out soon. Do I get an email notification when I receive a response? So we did kind of touch on that a little bit earlier. It's going to be very much like your proposal signed email. It's actually currently in our testing environment. So it is finished, but we need to make sure that we test it appropriately and that everything works correctly. But it's going to work very similarly to how it does with your proposals. And it's going to be sent to the email that you have listed in your company info. So we're hoping to have that out. Don't quote me, about a week, 2 weeks or so. But we will be sure to let everybody know once we get that, as we don't have an exact date on it yet. Yes, of course. All right. Okay, Amanda, you may have already touched on this and I missed it, but are we able to customize the general background if you don't want the marble background that the wedding intake template currently comes with? Yes, everything on the form is completely customizable. It is a template, so I would definitely say to go ahead and load in the template, because it does save you a lot of work on just your generic questions like your first name, email, etc. But as far as like the customization and the overall look of the form, we definitely want you to go in there and change that. You can change the backgrounds, all the colors, the different font styles. All of that information can definitely be changed to fit your branding and your style.
Sorry, I'm processing, so I can't type. This is so cool. And I've been looking at different automations, and you're right. It is a complete bargain for what you're charging for it, because this was a lot of work, and you can tell it was. For the templates, like I have friends that use details. Is there any way for me to create a template? And if my friend likes it and wants to like try it, can I share my self-created templates with them?
At this time, no.
Okay.
However, we've actually for a long time kind of talked about doing the same thing with recipes, where people will be able to share those if they wanted to. So I would say
Ooh.
I probably lump that in there with the same premise, to where you can basically share between details accounts. It's not something that we're working on now, and I can definitely say that it would be more involved. But I think it's a great idea, and I'll definitely put that in as a feature request.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Anybody else? And also, as we're all here, if you're like me, you won't have any questions now, but as soon as you get off this call or start to do something, you will have a million questions. So if that happens, just feel free to email me. Miranda has put up my email address there, so you can do the support@detailsflowers.com. And then also, if anybody wants to schedule some time, we can do that. So just let me know if you have any questions or anything like that. Otherwise, if nobody has any more questions, we can probably go ahead and wrap it out. Like I said, we will be sending a follow-up email to everybody with the recap video. It's also going to have some additional information on getting started with the form builder, selecting your subdomain if you haven't done that yet, and all of those things that go along with it. So I appreciate everybody for taking time out of their day today to learn more about the form builder. I hope that you really enjoyed it, and we look forward to your feedback. All right, thank you, everybody. Of course, Erica, thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Merlin. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close it out now. Thank you, everyone. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.